Right on cue, the fountains here at the Bellagio are going off, and they will continue to do so throughout the week leading up to Super Bowl LVIII. I'm with Joe Musso, Brady Quinn, Pete Prisco, and I'm Tommy Trey. And so, by the way, they were talking about Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. Pete, you're our resident Swiftie. You're going to be our expert on all things Taylor Swift this week.
Whatever you need, I can fill you in on all the gossip.
Yeah, we're going to have to lean on you. We also have Ryan Wilson later, by the way. We'll ask him how media night went out at Allegiant Stadium. But we're here to talk about the game and specifically position groups. And you guys are going to let us know who has the edge between the Chiefs and the Niners. So if we start with tight ends, because we're starting with Kelce and Swift, Brady Quinn, which team has the better tight end group?
I think it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it's close. I mean, obviously, George Kittle, and you look at the rest of the group there in San Francisco, I think makes it close. But to me, Travis Kelce has put himself in position, Pete, to be one of the greatest of all time, depending on how much longer he plays. But seeing what he's done so far this postseason throughout his career, you'd have to give Kansas City a slight edge over San Francisco.
I agree. And it's not a shame to be the second best tight end in the game because you're the second best tight end probably in the league. And so Kittle's a great player. Yeah. I mean, he does amazing things. He's a great blocker. But Kelce's special. This might end up being the greatest tight end we've ever seen. I mean, Rob Gronkowski is in the conversation, but Kelce, what he does, and what he does in the postseason is incredible. That's why he gets the edge for me.
You know what's awesome about it, too, is if you look at George Kittle, he was a converted wide receiver to tight end once he got into college, developed, obviously put on weight, muscle mass, could now be what he is in the NFL. Kelce, a converted quarterback to tight end. That's a kind of impressive part of both is they came from different positions now to be two of the best in the NFL.
Maybe you should have moved to tight end, Brady.
Maybe. Maybe.
Guys, we were talking earlier, and it feels like that's where the mutual respect in this matchup begins, is with Kittle and Kelce. So much respect between those two guys. Pete, can you remember a Super Bowl that has had this sort of respect? I mean, there's a lack of chippiness. There's a lack of edge when you're talking about the matchup and the way these two teams see each other.
Yeah, there's not a lot of give and take back and forth. It's one of those Super Bowls where you don't have a lot of trash talking because I think there is a respect factor. I mean, these two teams played 4 years ago. Think about that, 4 years ago. There's not a lot of the same guys around, but the stars are still around. A lot of the same guys are still there in terms of the stars. So I think that matters, and I think there's a respect between the two coaches and a respect between the two organizations. So you don't get a lot of trash talking between these two teams.
Yeah, I think when you get with some of those teams that have maybe kind of surprised a lot of people and how they found their way there, but these are two of the best teams that we expected before the season to potentially be playing for this right now. So as you said, it's a lot of respect, and I also think it's game recognizes game. You know, when you look across these rosters on both sides, all pros on both sides, you've got guys who are some of the best in their position. In the case of Patrick Mahomes, maybe the best ever at his position. So just a lot of respect back and forth at this point.
Well, let's shift inside of the offensive line then and talk about some of the best in the game at those positions as well. You got the best tackle in the world for San Francisco. You got some question marks as it pertains to Joe Thuney's availability with that pec. When you look at these two offensive lines, where is the edge there? Both have run the ball very effectively in this postseason.
I'm going to let Pete start off with this one because I feel like I might have a rebuttal out of this.
Okay.
Well, I'm actually going to go with the 49ers. And the reason I'm going with the 49ers is Trent Williams is by far the best player in the game. And the way they play, they can kind of scheme around some of their offensive linemen. And you don't have to be the best offensive lineman. It's not a great group, don't get me wrong. I think Brendel's played well. Banks, it can be a liability at times. Feliciano is good in pass protection, good in the run game, bad in pass protection, and McKivitz is okay.
He calls out Banks because he's a Notre Dame guy. We know how the shtick works.
I mean, he's a big physical guy who doesn't always play to that. But
well, him and Trent Williams play very well together. They're road graders on that side.
So I go with the Niners.
The right side is a concern for you, is it not?
Very much a concern.
And that's why I'm picking Kansas City by a slight edge. To your point, I don't think there's a better offensive lineman than Trent Williams on the field. But Creed Humphrey and Joe Thuney, if Thuney plays, would be two of the next that we talk about in this group of offensive linemen in this game. Here's what I'm a little bit concerned by is when Joe Thuney was out in the AFC Championship game, Pete, who did you call on to step up and have the game of his life?
Nick Allegretti.
The Pison passion, and now he's not picking his guy. But that might be one of the reasons why you didn't pick them.
Well, here's why I didn't pick them. They're really, no matter if Allegretti or Thuney plays, and Thuney's a better player, they're really good in the interior.
Here we go.
Jawan Taylor has been bad.
Okay, but you know what? They've been better in the playoffs.
But last week he wasn't great.
Jawan Taylor and Smith have been better in the playoffs.
But he wasn't great last week. And
have they been better in the playoffs, feet. Okay.
And the left tackle was better last week. So I think the tackles are the major concern, so I'll go with the 49ers.
There's been a common theme, and that's why the line is close, reflective of both of these teams being fairly even. And you guys, even though you've chosen sides, they've been the slimmest of margins. So if we flip things, we've broken down the front seven, so we'll get to linebackers. But if we're going to go D-line, Brady Quinn, who has the edge?
San Francisco. I mean, that's the group that I think, if you're looking at it from a quarterback perspective, game plan standpoint perspective, you're going to be more concerned with Nick Bosa than anyone else. Chris Jones is probably next on that list, as Pete kind of nods his head on all this. But that's really who you're most concerned with, because Bosa can absolutely dominate and terrorize you off the edge. So I would say their entire group as a whole probably is more productive, and they're probably a group that's why they, primarily rush forward, can get home with 4. But again, Kansas City's not far behind when you look at the development of Karlaftis this year, and again, a guy like Chris Jones amongst the rest of the group.
On paper, it's the 49ers. The 49ers defensive line we've seen the last 2 weeks, they've been bad, okay? Really bad. Armstead hasn't played to his expectations. In the interior, Hargrave hasn't played to his expectations. No sacks for Hargrave in the postseason. No sacks for Chase Young. They have to be better, but I'm still going with the 49ers because on paper, they're better. Chris Jones is the best game wrecker in the game. Bosa's right behind him.
Wow.
And then after that, you look across the board, I think it's pretty even.
I'd flip those two. But again, close between the two of them.
Maybe because of some of those struggles up front, the linebacker play for San Francisco this postseason also questionable at times, soft on the run, that zone defense that they're trotting out there. They've just been catching in the first half, it seems like. When you're looking at these two linebacker groups, Brady, where do you see the edge?
I still think the edge was San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are two of the best in the game, and I understand they haven't been as good against the run, but I don't know that I put that all on them. I think the defensive front has done a poor job of stopping offensive linemen to get into the second level. And again, Steve Wilks has to put them in more of an aggressive position in pass coverage. I mean, too often times, in particular in the NFC Championship game, they're dropping with depth. They're dropping to spots instead of dropping and trying to match coverage or even play man-to-man. They're going to have to play more man than I think they want to versus the Kansas City Chiefs because of how good Kelsey is, even Pacheco out of the backfield. I don't know if they want to do that, but I definitely think they've got the edge of the linebacker position in San Francisco.
Oh, I think they have the edge as well. And if you would ask me 4 weeks ago, I would have said slam dunk edge, but it's kind of leveled off for them. And you mentioned it. They're getting blocked, and the best way to get out on them is to block them, because if you can't get protection up front, because they're not overly big guys, they can run. They're the best run and chase combo in the league, I think. But when you get bodies on them, like you talked about, Brady, they can get engulfed at the point of attack, and that's why they've had problems. They're giving up 5.6 per rush on the ground the last 2 weeks. That's terrible, and a lot of it has to do with the linebacker.
And I think as we look at this matchup, Pete, you're probably more concerned about Christian McCaffrey on the outside versus Bolton versus Willie Gay, or even Drew Tranquill, who's done a good job filling in on any of those matchups, than you are with Pacheco versus Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw and vice versa. So that's really, I think, where you become more concerned is with the Kansas City Chiefs linebackers matching up against running backs and tight ends.
Lest we not forget, Nick Bolton also scoop and score a season ago in the Super Bowl, touched paint in this game, so coming in with a lot of confidence.
Pete Prisco, what about secondary defensive back?
That's easy. That's the Chiefs. And
easy.
It's really easy. The three corners of the Kansas City Chiefs might be the best group they've had in a long time. I mean, you're talking about L'Jarius Sneed, McDuffie, who's outstanding, and Josh Williams, who's played really well, particularly last week in the postseason. I think that group can match up, and we know Spagnuolo wants to match them up, and he will match them up, and he'll show a bunch of different stuff in the back end too. And Justin Reed's kind of an X factor because he can come down in the box, he can cover the tight end, he might be on Kittle some in man-to-man situations. I think that group is a big advantage for the Chiefs and Spagnuolo.
100% agree. I mean, it allows Steve Spagnuolo to do so many more creative things, but also play more man-to-man and match up when they want to bring those pressures. I think San Francisco misses Talanoa Hufanga. When you look back at their defense early in the season, he was the guy that as you're preparing for them and you look at the different levels, you'd look at Nick Bosa and say, that's going to be an issue for us protection-wise, but in coverage, it was, where's Hufanga? He's going to read the quarterback's eyes. He was a game wrecker as far as, I see it, getting tackles for loss, sacks, making plays in the secondary. They really missed him, in my opinion, as far as the run support and the different things that I think Steve Wilks wants to do and can do in the secondary. So I'm with you. I think it's Kansas City by a pretty wide margin.
Speaking about attacking that position, because Brown has struggled. He's a rookie. He's struggled back there. I imagine that they will go after him a little bit in coverage.
Hufanga, an all-pro from a year ago, and as you said, Brady, missed that all-pro talent at the third level. Coaching matchup. Maybe this one's obvious as well. You like to say pelts on the wall, Pete. One of them's got it. The other guy, he's got scar tissue. He's got his name on two of the biggest, the number one and number two biggest upsets. when it comes to fourth quarter, Kyle Shanahan in this game, do you worry about that scar tissue at all?
I worry a little bit about the scar tissue, but I have the utmost respect for Kyle Shanahan. And I think, even what he did in that Super Bowl for Matt Ryan and blowing that Super Bowl, he's a great play caller. He's designing the offense. He's as good as anybody that's ever been in this league. And so I have the utmost respect for him. But Andy Reid has done it. I mean, he's won those Super Bowls. He's gone to, when he was with the Eagles, he had teams that could have won the Super Bowl, and they didn't. But he's been that guy. And Andy Reid could end up being the greatest coach this league has ever seen if he stays in it. We don't know if he's going to stay in it. If he stays in it, he could end up being that guy. So, look, this is utmost respect for Kyle Shanahan, but this is Andy Reid.
I think it's a little bit closer, too, than maybe we'd like to think. But to your point, the body of work that Andy Reid's done from his time with the Eagles to his time with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the one thing I'd say, though, for Kyle Shanahan is early on in his head coaching career, the consistency of being able to get to conference championship games, and he's not doing it with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. So to your point, I think you go through his time as a coordinator, play caller, every single quarterback seems to have his best season with him as the coordinator. He's just able to dial things up, get to the right looks, still run the football effectively no matter where he's been in his career. So one of the best, no doubt, to do it. I would say it's pretty even from an offensive play calling standpoint,
yes.
But Andy Reid's done it,
yes.
and we've seen him do it time and time again.
And just to button things up, I was talking about it with Pete last week here. Andy Reid won his first Super Bowl against Kyle Shanahan in his 7th season with Kansas City. Kyle Shanahan in his 7th season with San Francisco have a chance to get it done.
You got a pick, Tommy?
How about that? That's what
Where we going, Tommy?
I'm just saying. You guys have, by the way, have agreed a lot today. We're not used to this. Usually on Sundays, you guys are ready to...
a couple differences,
one disagreement, right?
Yeah,
but okay, a little kumbaya, start things off in
We
Vegas.
broke the game down. That's what you do here. We don't always, contrary to some of our producers, we don't always have to disagree.
Well, let's put it on paper here, taking a look at where those advantages lie. Clear-cut winners. Hard to argue with Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk. Two of the best in the business when it comes to wide receiver play. And we got the best in the business as well, keeping you covered all week long on the Pick 6 podcast. Our team taking you inside all the matchups. Also took you inside Media Day a day ago. Download, subscribe, and enjoy the Pick 6 podcast.